to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each week, we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I'm Benedicte, and I'm feeling happy.
And I'm Benedikt. Today is September 20th. This is episode number 153, and I'm feeling determined. Why are you feeling happy? What's going on?
I guess two things. I've started lunchtime dancing. I even tweeted about it today. And I've experienced with some playlists. And for me, though, like 90s pop rock is hitting the spot about like guilty pleasures and some actual good music kind of mixed. At least I feel like good music mixed in between.
90s pop rock and some actual good music.
Well, there are, at least from my point of view, there were some actual good music as well in that period, but I also get enough of those like guilty pleasures where you just can like dance and sing out loud. So I started doing that like as I'm making lunch, because I'm also trying to be better with lunch and having things that I can just assemble. I think somebody tweeted about that. Remember, you can assemble food. You don't have to make food. And I was like, of course you can. I know this. I just haven't done it. So while I'm assembling my food, I just turn on the 90s pop rock on random and I just dance around my living room, and it's amazing like how happy I can get from like 10 minutes of dancing. And also
now I kind of want to know what are some of your favorites?
I don't know.
Some of the guilty pleasures. I want to know.
The thing is, I've always been really bad at remembering names and artists. Like, I've always loved music, but I've never been a music nerd, if that makes sense. So I don't remember which ones, I should have prepped this, which ones were showing up on my playlist today, because I did sing along to some of them, like really loudly. And I think like if somebody walks on the street outside my windows, like I'll probably make them happy as well, because I'm like making a fool of myself in here. And then tomorrow I am going to morning dancing. It's called Morning Beat. So they actually turn a location a location into a club, but it's from 7 in the morning till 10. So it's 2 hours of dancing and then there's an hour of yoga. So both things I enjoy. And I've done it once before and it was amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the other thing that's making me happy, I guess, is that Cloudinary wanted some more work done by us and also gave us a glowing testimonial on Twitter that I didn't even ask for. So
that are always the nicest ones, right? The ones that you didn't solicit.
Exactly. So, happy days in more than one way. And you, though, determined. Is it a happy determined or is it a...
Yeah, sort of. Like, we'll see how this goes. But we basically determined and set in stone. Well, let's see about that. But we want to finish the editor integration work this month. So about 2 weeks left, a little bit less, I guess. But we want to have it out at least on production behind a feature flag and enabled for ourselves and maybe a couple of people. But we want to get this out. So the next 2 weeks and basically this week and next week are finishing things up. I have a lot of work left on the back-end side of things. Leo still has a few things left on the front-end side of things, but it's really solid by now. We're almost running out of to-dos by now. I think we can make it, and it's about time that we set a deadline and work toward that deadline. And then if we can't ship certain things, then let's just ignore them until after we ship that. That's why I'm determined.
Marketing emails where you're listening to people and fixing things like we talked about last time.
Exactly. Again, like, let's see how stable this is and if we can roll it out for everyone immediately. Not sure about that, but at least I want to have it out on production. I want to have it on the real system. I want to have a transition path or a toggle or whatever to be able to turn it on for people gradually. And that's the goal for the next 2 weeks. And I am determined we will make this happen.
It will happen. And when you do, it's going to be great. It's going to be an amazing feeling. But I remember talking about Brian Cassell last week when we were talking about this and how he had it, like his emails are really good at surfacing features that aren't new. So you don't always have to have new stuff. But I think it was like a day after, or a couple of days after our last week's conversation, he sent an email about how long should you spend on a feature. Because he usually wants it to be like within 2 weeks, I think, but they did a video editor for his new product and it took longer. Like a video editor is hard. And I don't know if he really concluded, but I thought you should go on his like new, I think he has a new podcast show where it's like little clips where he talks to somebody. And I think you should get on that and talk about this, like how long it's too long and what to do about it. Like, I think you could have an interesting discussion.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And I still don't know the answer. It's just a lot of pros and cons, I guess. But yeah, did he come to a conclusion in that email? I have to admit I didn't get it.
I don't think
not subscribed to the right thing, I guess.
No, I don't think he really did. Like similarly to you, he was kind of like, it was the right thing to do for this feature, but you have to be very intentional about what you're choosing to spend your time on. And by making this video editing feature, like they have had to let other things kind of slide, or they haven't made progress in other areas of the product, and you have to be comfortable with that. So yeah, kind of similar vibe. I just like, it would be cool if you, because he had the video editor, you have the
message editor.
The message editor. I was like, the editor. He has a video editor. You have the editor. But yeah, and just like talking it through, because I think that would be interesting for people who are like earlier on in their journey with their products, and like hearing from you could be an interesting conversation. So I'll reply to that email and suggest that. And we'll see if he
want to. Then we just have it on this show again, right?
We could have it. Yeah, we could do that. But yeah, other thing that's going on over in Germany.
In Germany in general. Oh, I don't know.
I meant like in your home office in Germany.
In my home office in Germany. Yeah, it feels like things are picking up again. It feels like September, people are finally back to work. And I might have mentioned this last week, but on last week's episode. But again, like we had someone try out the product who had actually a pretty big Twitter following, and he also posted a raving testimonial on Twitter. And we got a lot of eyes on the product, and suddenly we got more people signing up, and that like that rarely happens with all the marketing efforts we do.
Influencer marketing, y'all.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if it's just because of that. And I guess you mentioned it when we talked about it a couple of days ago, that those might be people that have heard about us a couple of times from our own marketing activities, and just that tweet triggered them to give it a try. But anyways, we got the most signups in quite a while last week, and that's kind of fun. Like it's just nice to see those notifications come in and have them not be spammers who try to game your system.
So this is when, prior to this recording, I said we should have like a plug section in our show, and you were like, "Isn't this just a plug for us, all of this?" But this is my plug, or I guess my call to action, because we'll put that tweet, Benedict's tweet, testimonial tweet, and my testimonial tweet in the description, and you can click it and retweet.
Yes, click like and subscribe, whatever. No,
like and subscribe that tweet. share that tweet, and we will
Share that
be
tweet,
very
yeah.
grateful, because those things actually help, like you're saying. Like it does actually lead to new subscribers for you guys.
Yeah, and I guess it helps that it's a popular Twitter account tweeting stuff. Surprise!
Surprise!
But then, I mean, in a way, it's actually a surprise, because I've never considered this to work for B2B SaaS, and especially not for a product like ours, where I still feel like it's not an impulse buy or an impulse sign up or even an impulse trial, because it's not as straightforward and to set up and stuff like that. And the open question is like how many of those trial signups would actually convert into paying customers. What's encouraging is like a couple of times we get like signups and then a cancellation right away, where they're like, yeah, I just want to log into it and don't forget to cancel. And we didn't get a lot of those this time. So fingers crossed they actually try out the product and they actually considering converting to paid. We see.
But I'm guessing this is, like you say, the time for that, because people are back at work. It's like, okay, let's pick up that project we talked about. We're going to change email providers, or we should get an email provider kind of, and this is the time to do it. And also like have that done by the new year, where you pick up a new project, right? So it's definitely that type of a season, I feel like, where people are picking up things they've forgotten, or things maybe they were like, oh, it's, we'll do that sometime in 2022. And then you're realizing
and
sometime in 2022.
Crap, we should probably do it right now.
That's now. It's now, because soon there will be Advent, and then it's Christmas, and we're done. That's it, folks. That's 2022. So
yeah,
get that.
The end is coming fast. Well, the end of done. 2022, I guess.
Yeah, I already got an email from somebody wanting me to submit a call for proposal, CFP, like submit a talk proposal for a conference in 2023. And I think it was maybe May 2023 or March 2023. And I was like, what? That's 10 years.
That's the distant future.
but it's not. And it was quite cool, because on the show last week, we helped somebody we're the founder of Distribute Aid, which is a nonprofit, and they're doing their whole marketing site as a or like an open source project. We're trying to get kind of, new developers helping out and building and learning while making their marketing site. And I helped them out with some Gatsby issues on stream last week. And then I thought a little bit about POW and like how I originally wanted it to be open source, but then I was like, let's make this big. And then it's like, well, maybe. So I was like back on those open source thoughts, and I got this CFP invite from Libre Planet that I've never heard about, but it's supposedly a big open source conference, and they wanted me to talk about POW. So that was kind of serendipitous, where it's like you're thinking, like with the Brian email, like you're thinking about one thing and then something like pops in that are exactly on point and what you're thinking about. But then other than that, I've just been focusing on my prepping for the conferences I am booked at, working on that outline and working on those, on the outlines that hopefully will then turn into good talk. I'm spending most of my time on like the outline to really nail that before filling in all the code demos and making the slides and all of that, and actually making it solid. But it's coming along. But it's coming along. Just doing it a little bit every week. But you're prepping for some conferences as well, or is it one conference?
We are looking forward to MicroConf. I'm finally going back to MicroConf, and it will be the first conference I'm attending basically since COVID. It's been a while. I think my last MicroConf was 2019, something like that, and I skipped the last MicroConf Europe and obviously the US one and all other conferences out there, and I got a ticket, and I'm finally going back to a conference, and I'm excited. I can't wait.
And I'm actually going to Meetup tonight, which is also like, I did go to some conferences, as longtime listeners know. I went on a crazy tour over to MicroConf US, but I haven't seen really meetups picking up again. So this is the first as a React Oslo meetup is happening tonight. And I was like, I'm gonna just go down there. I'm not really sure what they're going to talk about, but I need to meet some people that are not my neighbors and that kind of, know what I'm talking about when I talk about code, but that are real people and not on the screen. So that's going to be interesting, because I think within those years, I imagine the community has probably shifted, because it's always, some people are very into organizing and then they kind of burn out, and then some new people come in. And you can see like a generational flow, like people getting kids, they go less to meetups, and then their kids are getting older, like mine, they come back to meetups. So I just did a quick glance on the guest list, and like none of those faces kind of popped out as somebody I know. So that's going to be really interesting to just like go down there and be like, hey, I'm Queen Ray. Who are you? So on that
that will be fun, I guess.
What are some of your best tips for getting the most out of a conference?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have like tips, but these are things we're thinking about right now. Because we're also bringing our customer advocate with us, or I'm bringing her with me, I guess, sort of, because Jane can't make it this year. So we figured, hey, let's bring Katarina on. Just to get familiar with the community and some of our customers. And we figured it's a good opportunity to get her a little bit more familiarized with the people we are building for. And ever since we decided that, I'm thinking about how do we as company get the most out of it? It's easy for me in the past. Like, I knew what I want to do and what I want to get out of the conference, but now going there as a team of sorts, I'm starting to wonder, like, what should we do, and what goals should we set, and what's the game plan? And honestly, I don't have answers yet. It's just an open question. Maybe you have some ideas. But some of the go ahead before I go into other stuff.
Oh yeah, my only conference hack, I guess, is to be a speaker. I don't really go to conferences unless I'm the speaker, except I went to MicroConf, but because as a speaker, like, a lot of the work is done for you because people will come up and talk to you. So it's a lot easier to get contact with new people, because after being a speaker, like, people will often come up to you and want to discuss the things that you've been talking about, and you get to meet people that way. You get kind of the name recognition, the authority. So being a speaker is like become my hack, I guess, but it's quite time intensive in a way to make the talk. But getting into being a speaker was so much easier than I ever imagined. I went to the diversity CFP day, where they taught us like how to create these CFPs, as they're called, call for proposals. The conferences say, hey, who wants to talk at my conference? And that's called a CFP, a call for proposal. And then you submit a pitch, basically. You don't even submit the talk. You submit a pitch for a talk. And then if they accept, you get your traveling expenses covered. And for some conferences, you get a little stipend as well, like some extra cash. And then you have to make that talk by the conference, the time the conference rolls around. But that's quite a long time. Usually it's like 4 or 5 months. So you can potentially write like 3 or 4 pitches and then see which ones get picked up. And it's okay to do the same talk at multiple conferences. This took me a long time to realize, because I thought that it had to be original content. And then it's like, but nobody has time to do that on top of their job as like a marketing thing. If you're not a DevRel, of course, which most of the conferences are developer relations or advocate people. So they do want people who are not that to come and speak as well. So it's a way to get in that way. But then I realized you can do the same talk a whole conference season. So if you go in now and look at all of the developer conferences that are happening, or marketing conferences, I would imagine as well, any conferences that are happening this fall, you'll see the same people holding the same talk at all of the conferences. And if you do that, it becomes even more of a hack because you meet the same people again and again. And then they actually become your friends or acquaintances, at least, that you can reach out to at a later stage. So that's my hack or tip.
Yeah, that touches on a good point, because for me, conferences are not primarily about the talks, but about the relationships and meeting people. And that's one thing why I like microconf so much, or like microconf style conferences, or maybe it's just the community, or I don't know. Like, I don't enjoy developer conferences that much anymore, because they're kind of lacking that relationship aspect of it. Like all developer type conferences I went to in the past, they were all great, and they had good talks, and the food was great, and the parties were nice, but for the most part, it always felt like people are staying within their circles, and maybe they were coming with their company and their team, and they were just hanging out as a team, and there wasn't that much of like meeting new people and forming relationships or new relationships. And I guess in that case, being a speaker and being kind of interesting for everyone, or like starting the conversation on a stage by speaking to all of the attendees, helps a lot to get like the conversations going. So I can totally see that.
Yeah, and you get that relationship to the other speakers, which could be interesting if you are new in a space, because you kind of get to literally sit at their table, because there's usually a speaker's dinner, and that's when you can then meet your heroes, kind of, or other people in the industry that are a step ahead of you, or that you look up to, and that's also where when you kind of get to more of that type of position, also can help others who are kind of the newcomers coming in. And like, it's something, there's a terminology, into the fold, but I can't remember what the beginning of that terminology is. But anyway, like, I feel like when you've done it and you become part of, like, because it's like high school, there's an in crowd, everybody knows who they are. And I feel like when you are the in crowd, you are responsible for making sure that you include some of the newcomers into the crowd, and then they become kind of the in crowd or whatever. Yeah. In crowd is just like a word for people who know, like, they know each other. They've been to so many conferences together. And I felt as a new speaker when I did in 2019, when I did my I did a same talk on POW 4 or 5 times. Like by the third conference, like I was part of the speaker group, like we could hang out and we would chill out. And then other people from the other audience, as I said, would like come up and speak to you, and you could connect to people that way and then follow up with them on Twitter. And some of them are the people like I do connect with on Twitter now, or people from that kind of conference season of fall 2019. So I am definitely agreeing that it's the relationships, because because I'm just talking from developer talks or tech conferences, like you're saying, they're different from the business conferences in the kind of, as you're saying, the developers aren't always there to look. I feel like sometimes they're just there because like it's a way to get off work. Like they got, at least there's like this huge conference in Oslo, which is like the biggest party for developers in Norway. And like all the companies will pay for the developers to go. And it's the relationships and that part that it's all about, but usually within there. Anyway, I'm getting off track. The point, what was the point I was trying to make? Yes, the talks you can often just watch on YouTube.
Yeah, so true.
If you only go to a conference and you look at the talks and don't speak to a soul, then the money is kind of
probably
wasted.
Yeah, wasted money. And that's not to say that there aren't good talks, and
they're great talks, but
you can learn stuff from or take inspiration from, but yeah, don't neglect the other part, like the relationship part. And honestly, I'm having a hard time at developer conference. It's super awkward from like, I don't know. It's been a while. Like my last developer conference has been a couple years back as well, but I was walking around there and trying to start conversation, and it didn't work.
It can be hard. It can be hard, but as I said, that's why I realized the speaker hack for. So I'm guessing, let's say
Yes.
that is especially important for the kind of tech
tough
style
crowd.
conference. Like if you're working on something and you look at it as a marketing tool, then you need to be a speaker at these tech conferences. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's you're just not going to meet people and build long-term relationships with them just from the talk around the table. But over to the business conference that you are focusing on. So because I'm guessing you're not a speaker, because that would be, you would have been announced already. So what are some of the things that you're thinking about doing?
So one thing we always do, it's kind of a tradition by now, is hosting a dinner. And basically the way this works is we look at nice restaurants nearby and just book a room or a large table. Usually a private room is pretty nice. So if it's a restaurant with like, where you can like get a separate room and then invite 10 or so people, and just have a nice evening. And you can either have everyone pay for themselves, but usually we just like do it as a marketing expense and just invite everyone. And I guess it's kind of like hosting your own speakers dinner, because almost everyone is open to getting invited for a free dinner. So
Free food. It's like no.
You can look at the list of attendees and speakers and people that you'd like to meet, and just invite them and have a great night with them. And that, like, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have very fond memories, like, of some conferences. I don't remember anything but the dinner. For example, we did this in Lisbon also for MicroConf, and we still keep thinking back about that restaurant we went to. And just earlier today, I recommended it to someone else. So always worth it. The other small thing I like to do is bring some swag, like some merch, company merch. But like, when you're not a sponsor at a conference, don't overdo it. Like we did this with one of the companies I worked at in the past, where we would go to conference and then basically flood the hallway with branded merch, and the organizers were not excited about that at all. So we put out stickers and everything, and they basically walked behind us and collect them again, because obviously we're not paying to be a sponsor, so don't have the right to actually spread your swag around. Also, it's a bad idea for the environment. But like, if you bring a couple of t-shirts and stuff like that you can hand out after conversations with people or customers you meet, that's usually a nice gesture. And the other
especially
thing
customers,
I
I think, because if they feel that connection, like you've actually spoken to a customer in that kind of an environment, which is kind of, not like not when you usually would speak to your vendors, kind of, or like you're speaking to a vendor and you're just feeling that personal connection, and you're like, hey, you want a t-shirt? And they're like, yes. And then suddenly they're on Twitter with their t-shirt, or like they're like,
exactly.
hey, look what
or
I
even
got
at the conference in the t-shirt,
or even
right?
at the conference, like, hey, you got one of those as well. And suddenly two customers have connected, and that makes kind of the tribe around the product even stronger. And just back to the dinner thing, it's amazing how happy people are for a free meal, like even if they're super successful and by the extent of that rich, like they will still be like, wow, like they bought me dinner, or like they invited me to their dinner. It's so, like, you can even like invite people that you might feel are a little kind of out of your reach, or again with that like in crowd thing.
Totally.
Like you can extend an invitation, and if they're already in the city, they don't want to sit alone in the hotel. And if you're organizing something social that they could be a part of without having to like spend that effort and being self-conscious about social interactions and all of that, like if you give them the space, like they will often show up. It's completely different.
Maybe they will also show off, but who knows?
Maybe they will show off, but it's because you have to like at the end of the day, we're all just like people, and we're also insecure, and social stuff is hard, and
Yeah.
you don't want to make a fool of
And
yourself.
especially if you're at a conference and arrive a little bit early or something like that. Usually you're alone, don't know anyone, and still have to figure out dinner plans and make reservations or look for a nice place. And if all of that is taken care of for you, I guess that's a nice thing.
So even if you're not like if you're not doing it at the extent that Benedict is talking about, just asking some people like, should we, do you want to grab dinner together, and be a crowd of anything between 5 and 10, being that person that like sticks their hand up and be like, hey, should we head to this restaurant? Do you want to join? And then also make sure to like, grab those people that seem like, they don't know what to do, and they're a little bit scared to interact. Then like that could be a really good experience both for them and for yourself. And you don't have to sit alone in your hotel room and like wait for the next conference day.
Yeah, totally. That's also, by the way, that's one of the things I learned at MicroConf. Don't underestimate people you talk to. They might seem like quiet or very like timid or whatever, but they might be running a multi-million-dollar business, and you don't know until you talk to them. So, yeah, that's also a good thing. Like if you organize a dinner or whatever during the conference, not booking it out fully is a good idea. So you can like just invite people spontaneously while talking to them if you feel like you met someone nice and that you like to get to know better than being able to just say, hey, do you want to join? We're hanging out at this restaurant later today. Just join us. And yeah, that's nice. The other thing I like to do as a conversation starter, or like to get like a small cheat code to get into conversations or a group, is bringing sweets or local food. Like usually when I go to conference, I go to a supermarket and go to the Haribo section and get a lot of different brands and kinds of gummy bears and stuff like that. Preferably stuff that's not available anywhere else, which isn't always easy, depending on
which used to be easy, but now
like now everything's available everywhere.
Yeah.
But anyways, I guess it doesn't matter that much what it is and if it's available. But if it's something that people usually don't get, that's better. But yeah, like, and honestly, like just a bag of sweets works well because you can just open it and walk around with it and offer people sweets, and they like it, and you can get into conversation because of that. Or if you like me, then bring a couple of bags and hand out the bags, so more people have the opportunity to just walk around and give everyone treats. So yeah, it's easy, it's cheap, and it's a good icebreaker, I guess.
And if you have people on Twitter that are going to be at the same conference, it's sometimes hard to find those people because we don't look like our avatars. Surprisingly enough, we don't all look like our avatars. And then it could be like, then it's also a fun exercise of being like, hey, I brought some sweets. So for MicroConf, I did the same. I bought some Norwegian Kit Kat, which is called Quick Lunch, and kind of tweeted out like, I'm the person in the very red dress, and I have, Quick Lunch in my bag if you want some. And then people could like find me because they could recognize what I was wearing, and also like I was handing out, and like it's a way for people to recognize you. And that's the other thing, like it's hard to recognize people from online, so you kind of have to be there to be that person who's like, are you? And they're like, at whatever whatever handle they have, and they'll be like, yeah, that's me. And then like you'll have to say your handle or like show a photo, and then you're like, oh, we actually know each other, because they might not know that it's you, and then kind of just walk past you like they don't know you, and you might feel bad, but it's not because they don't want to talk to you, it's just because they don't recognize you, right? So I guess it's a little bit, if you go to a conference, you need to get out of your comfort zone a little bit if you're going to get something out of it. If you don't like talking to strangers, like you you need to at least find those people who aren't strangers, but then you have to, put yourself out there a little bit. But I want to say we have a friend, a common friend, Miriam, who does Conference Buddy. Just a thing conferences can kind of have where people on their lanyards, the things you have around your neck, they're called lanyards. I felt very swanky when I learned what they were called. And you can put, like, if you are more outgoing like me and the conference has kind of the conference buddy system in place, you can put a little button on your lanyard that says that you are a conference buddy. And if like somebody else who are feeling insecure or alone, or it's their first conference, like they know that they can come up to a group with somebody with that button on their lanyard, and they will know that they will be included kind of in the conversation. And one of the tips that she has given, and that I know like other people give as well, is if you're at a conference and you are a group who's standing in a circle, make sure that there is room in your circle. So even if you're going to be like the busybody, like sometimes I like feel like I go full on mom mode when I'm at conferences or meetups, because I'm like, come on, leave. We need some room in this circle, because otherwise nobody can like come up. We don't want to, let people know that we are a closed circle that you're not allowed to come up to. Because I think, as you said, you never know who you're going to speak to. It's the same thing with like including the like new people that you want to be just like be a nice human being, but also like down the road, like it could be your next really good employee, or it could be your next really good customer, or it could be your next really good friend, or like cheerleader that helps your business or your career, and you don't know that ahead of time. So being open and not just kind of chasing the in crowd, and like, or just being together with your own little crowd, like that's not why we go to conferences. At least that's what my opinion.
I totally agree. Yeah.
And some people are quite bad at this. Like some people do like crowd and just like have secret conversations and don't want to get to meet anybody new. And then I just think, leave them to it and go find some other people.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, if you don't want to do this, then that's fine as well. But yeah, there's I feel like it removes the fun out of the conference in a little way.
I love that we talk about conferences and meetups, and it's all been about food and talking to people. And then, like, what do? We have to sit through talk after talk with like mini little breaks in between. So I do enjoy that the conferences that has quite a substantial amount of break time. Because that's where the magic happens. It's called
exactly.
And the Americans call it the hallway track. It's like the conference that happens outside of the conference rooms, and it's called the hallway track. So that's another conference word that I had to learn. So it's lanyard and hallway track, speaker dinner, and then CFP, called for proposal, were some of the terminology that just confused me a lot in the beginning.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I guess that's it with my go-to tips. I don't know. Like, as I said, like, still not sure what we want to do in terms of like for user list at MicroConf. I'm not saying that we should go there with a goal of like getting 20 new customers or something like that, but I feel like it would be interesting to set like a personal goal, or like a goal for ourselves in terms of we want to at least meet all of the customers that are at the conference and talk to all of our customers that are attending, or do like a mini survey or something at the conference where you, I don't know, get to decide like what's the next, I don't know, marketing copy look like, or what's the next feature we should build, something like that.
I feel like maybe you should
you
could agree on some questions that you want to ask over and over again. So it's almost like a mini survey, but then also if you take the time to actually note down a little bit of that after each conversation, if you just have a little notebook or just type or talk it into your phone or something, like that could be very helpful, because I think people will be kind of looser in the way they talk about your product. If you're like, hey, oh, you're a customer, yay, like, had any problems lately? And then people are like, yeah, and they'll talk about it. But if you set up a call with them, they're going to be more like in that business frame of mind. Exactly. And you might not get their like unfiltered conversation. And then the other thing I would listen to is how they talk about you to the next person in the group. Because they, if you talk to someone, it's like, oh, I'm Benedict from Userlist, like, and they'll be like, oh, cool, Userlist. And then they turn to the next person and they're like, yeah, because we use Userlist for X, or because that's often how we introduce, somebody to somebody else. Like, if you can actually try to remember what they're saying and write that down, like that could be good copy.
Or even just, now that we're talking about it, I'm coming up with ideas, which is good. So I guess what we should do is just ask people about their email marketing setups and automation setups, and maybe problems they're running into, with their existing providers and stuff like that. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but
people will love that.
It's not necessarily stuff you think about talking with people at a conference. So.
No, but it's good because I promise you people will love it. Like, if they're not your customer and you're like, oh, how's your setup? And like, if it's a pain, like
you'll hear about it. Yes.
Yeah. And here they have something to talk about, right? Because going back to what we were talking about earlier, a lot of people have anxiety around like, what should I talk to people about? And like, how is this conversation going to flow? And if you probe them with a question like that, like, they'll have something to say and they will feel comfortable saying it because they're answering a question, which takes the pressure off of them to come up with a topic to talk about.
Yeah. I'm taking notes right now. Just a second.
I like it. It's like, take a second, everyone who's listening. Benedict is taking notes.
Yeah, honestly.
But if you're on note-taking, I just remembered when you were talking about the dinner, a book I read quite a while back. It's by Priya Parker. It's called The Art of Gathering. And she has, if I remember correctly, like a whole chapter on how you do those kinds of dinners you're talking about into kind of a next level event or experience for the people attending. Like one they will remember. Yeah. And it's a well-written book, and she has a lot of good information, both for, I guess, conference organizers, but I just remember her like going down to like the dinner party details, like even your private dinner parties, but also then like company type style around conferences, and like how you can, grab your network into dinner and like give them an experience that they remember. Don't remember all the tips, but I remember her having a good chapter about that.
I'll definitely check it out, like even just for that chapter. Yeah, okay. Took down my notes, wrote down my notes, and I guess that's it. Do you have anything else to add for this week?
No. Other than remember to click our links and retweet, since I'm now the marketing, the plug responsible of this show. No, I'm just kidding. That would be super nice. And also, if you have any tips for Benedict and what he should do on MicroConf, I guess that could be like DM him.
Yes, please. Much appreciated. Yes.
And if you need any help, and I guess if you need any help with call for proposals, you can DM me if you just need somebody to be like, do it, or read through your CFP before you send it in, because I have quite a high acceptance rate, actually. Just not to brag, but I do. So yeah, I guess that's it. We'll see you around the interwebs.
That's it. See you.